This is video 2 of me answering your questions from Instagram and Facebook. This is going to be a really long one, I'm pretty sure, but I've got you. I'm going to have timestamps in the video description box so you can skip around and there will essentially be a table of contents. We'll start not so much with answering a question as responding to a comment that I get a lot. I know so many of you are, whoops, I forgot to put the question on screen for your reference. I know so many of you are very frustrated with the quality of my audio and video. In terms of the video content, sometimes I use the webcam that I have, which I'm using right now on my desktop. Other times, if I'm walking around the house and not planted here, I use my personal laptop. It's not the laptop that you often see behind me. That's my work laptop, which I obviously can't use my work one to do these types of videos. My personal laptop is 13 years old, and I use the built-in camera on my laptop from 13 years ago to record some of my videos. It is what it is. In terms of audio, I should be okay. I got one of these based on one of your recommendations. And I think the real issue is probably because I'm using Windows Movie Maker and the audio record function and the video record function in PowerPoint. So that's how I make my videos. That might be an issue because I know both of them are really old versions. If you are really a total tarot beginner, here's my recommendation. Either get a RWS or a Marseille deck. And what I recommend that you do is you get a very cheap mass market one. 15 bucks is usually all it's going to cost you. And what you do is you also find or source a list of keywords for the deck that you have purchased. And you do some arts and crafts on your own deck. So you take the keywords, I would print them out, or you can write it in with a magic marker of some kind and just put keywords, deface your cards, that's right, vandalize them, and write in keywords, either having them just 3 or 4, upright, or having the upright and reverse keywords, that's up to you. And making sure not to necessarily cover any of the important or material symbolism, but try to keep it to the sides. And that's what I would do. That would be my favorite tarot beginners deck. I have to be honest, I don't really have a list of my top absolute most favorite tarot books of all time. Some books that I think are fantastic, and I would almost argue, if I'm being super orthodox, definitely worth having in your personal library. These are the ones that I would say. This book by Robert Place, of course, A History of the Occult Tarot by Decker and Dumet, another one of my favorites, 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack, Mary Greer's Tarot for Yourself, an incredible workbook for self-exploration. And because I wrote Holistic Tarot for myself, for my personal reference, but also as a way of teaching tarot, my pedagogical approach to learning tarot, I have to recommend this one. Not an all-time favorite book or anything like that, but I just think that it's a pretty good, I feel like I'm pretty proud of what I've done here with the Book of Maps, Revelation Edition specifically. If you read the card meanings, I've made sure every single entry integrates both references from the pictorial key and the Book of Thoth. And so if you've ever wondered about those card meanings and want a one consolidated place to compare and contrast Waite and Crowley's approaches to each card, that's in the card meanings section of Book of Maps because I've integrated that and synthesized it into the SKT Revelation. I know clearly I do not understand the assignment here, but I have a couple more. I go through phases in terms of where I am in what I want to develop and cultivate in my personal tarot practice, also my personal mystical studies, esoteric studies. Right now, what I'm really interested in is the Kabbalah. And so I wanted to recommend a couple of books that are at the intersection of tarot and Kabbalah. One of them that I really love, I love Gary Jaron, Mark Horn as well. If you're really interested in learning more about the Kabbalah and how you can apply that to your tarot practice, this is a phenomenal one. Christine Payne Towler's Tarot of the Holy Light Companion Guidebook and the Foundations book, this set here. If you have never explored Julie Cuccio Watts's texts on the tarot, she's an astrologer and a tarot reader and also an artist and has created some incredible decks that she has illustrated herself and also devised astrological correspondences and moon correspondences to the tarot. So if you haven't explored her work, I highly recommend it. I don't know why she is such an underrated tarot artist, creator, and astrologer. You don't hear about her as much, but I just don't know why. She's just so cool. Decks, part of my daily practice. I consider myself a deck reviewer, and I always work with the decks before I review them. So what's on my reading desk on the daily will be the decks that I'm about to review. And then, of course, in terms of the deck that I go to for all things right now at the time of this recording is my Spirit Keepers Tarot Revelation Edition. I want to caveat my response to this question with my reading style and go-to spreads, whatnot, evolve and change from time to time. For general readings, or if I don't have a specific question in mind, I do use the opening of the key reading method. If it's just a short, quick type of reading for the daily, I will just do the first operation. Sometimes for specific questions and on the daily, what I will do is think about the question I have in mind, deconstruct it into a couple of parts, and those parts, the sub questions that I have that equal the total question that is on my mind. And those sub questions become separate card positions in a spread that I pretty much design on the fly in a sense, and then do a reading based on the intention set programmed reading spread I've devised for that specific reading session. With the Spirit Keepers Tarot deck specifically, almost all of my readings are going to be it will begin with a form of invocation, and the concept of the reading will be to invoke a particular spirit, to commune and converse with that spirit. And my divination, or the question that I want answered with the cards, is going to be presented to that spirit, and the cards become a communication tool between that spirit and me. So that's kind of how I work with the tarot now. Because as early as I can remember, I've always enjoyed going to the occult section of the public library to read the books on that shelf or a couple of shelves. I've always kind of known about the tarot, and by always, okay, actually I mean since maybe junior high. So since junior high, I've known about this thing called the tarot, but never had a deck of my own. And I think maybe 8th grade, a little bit later on in junior high, a friend of mine bought me my own deck because she saw how interested I was in the tarot. And that's kind of how I got into it. And I guess because I've always been into the arts, something like the tarot, thinking about how it is art plus divination, just what it is, of course, I took to it like fish to water, right? Leifa, or thunder rites. In the social circles that my mom ran with, so what I was exposed to as a kid and among my relatives in southern Taiwan, I mean, I've just always known Leifa was a thing because I was exposed to people who talked about it a lot. Earlier, there was a question about how do I study? I wasn't ignoring that question. I wanted to combine it with this question about 5 astrology books, whatnot. How do you approach the study of something? So I think if you focus too much on that big question, I want to learn astrology or I want to learn X. For example, I was guilty of this myself when I thought I want to know how to digital paint in color so I can create a tarot deck in full color using digital painting techniques. When I think on that level and I'm at 0, it's really overwhelming and I constantly give up before I've even started. And so that's why it took so long for me to even try to endeavor into something like that. What I've learned in terms of how I study is instead of focusing on the question, how do I learn astrology, or what 5 books should I go to learn astrology? I begin with something very micro. I take my birth chart, and maybe instead of 5 books, what I would suggest is take 5 birth charts from your close loved ones, friends, family, people you can access for direct feedback to see if it validates their actual life experiences and personality traits. So you begin with, let's say, your birth chart and just point at anything on that chart, anything at all. House 8, or where the Venus glyph is located, or you see Aquarius and it looks like it's in this sector called house 3 or 3. What is that? So then you go and find the answer to that very specific question. That's all you do. Find the answer to that specific question. Then you move on to the next question. Also, when you're going to answer that question, you probably have to read a couple of different sources. As you're reading those astrological sources, 5 different books. Instead of reading 5 astrology books cover to cover, maybe find a way to have access to 5 different astrology books and find the answer to that specific question in all 5 of those books and begin taking notes, synthesizing your own astrology journal. Same with endeavoring to study Kabbalah, same with endeavoring to study the I Ching. Think about what the parts of the whole are and then create different sections in your own personal journal of some kind, or a notebook, or even a file folder where you're going to be collecting references. Instead of a goal of reading 5 astrology books in 2022, find a way to get 5 birth charts. It can even be birth charts of famous people and celebrities, to be honest, but get 5 birth charts. And your goal is going to be mastering a level of some proficiency in reading those 5 birth charts. And then find a way to get references and resources to learn how to read those 5 birth charts. You're going to want to begin with some of the major personal planets, the transpersonal planets. You're going to want to look at the personal sensitive points, 12 houses, 12 signs. And what did all that mean? Take notes, write them down as categories of some kind of a personal journal, and then go and fill those categories with knowledge. I think one of the reasons we feel so overwhelmed about acquiring knowledge, research, and learning or mastering a new subject is because a part of us is irrational, and we feel like we need to wake up tomorrow morning and be masters at that subject, or else we are failures in life. And finding some way to get over that irrational impulse of an emotion is the first step of quality research, I think, because I always begin with a very small question, and I just want to answer that small question. In my search for the answer to that small question, that very easy, digestible, I can learn this in the next 2 minutes level question, when I'm reading the answer to that question, of course, you come upon terms you don't know, you come upon phrasing you don't understand, I will flag that. And that becomes my next level of inquiry. What does this mean? What does that mean? And then that's my next level of this educational or learning and research process. So in that way, it's not as overwhelming because, for example, going back to the astrology question, instead of saying, I want to master astrology in 2022, I say, well, this week I'm trying to figure out what does house 3 correspond with, and so I will just focus on that house 3. I will look up as many resources as I can, so not one book, but the 5 books. But instead of reading 5 books cover to cover in 1 year, I think about, okay, for this week, I'm going to find 5 resources to answer the question, what are the correspondences for house 3? In terms of ritual practices on the daily, I'm not so sure I do like crazy sophisticated ceremonial rituals of any kind on the daily. The only thing I do on the daily for sure is meditation and invocations. Invocations is probably the wrong word. I don't think I know how to use that word correctly. Devotionals is probably a more precise term. So I definitely do meditations and devotionals on the daily. On the daily, I also try to actively and mindfully practice the tenets of my religion. So I think about what the tenets of my religion are, and I make sure every single day I have done something to actively practice that particular tenet. Banishings, not so much. Warding, what I do like to do is more folk magic than ritual. Leaving out a bowl of black vinegar, leaving out a cut onion. These are little things I do in terms of warding. Talismans on my windows, different types of protection and warding sprays that I spray on the 4 corners of every single window and every single door or entranceway into my house. I kind of do that on the routine, not daily though, maybe quarterly. In terms of really more like serious level banishings or protection, when you have something legit going on in your life, right? I ask for help. This is not something where you have to be like, I have to do it myself, or I am so powerful, I'm awesome. This is a really important time in your life to be vulnerable and ask for help and say, well, the reason I am so overwhelmed and emotionally anxious about this situation, why I am even resorting to this type of big level, big picture, high level banishing, is because I'm frightened. I am vulnerable. I don't know what to do for myself. I don't think I can handle it by myself. When you do that, then you reach out and ask for help. I get help. I get help from master practitioners. I get help from friends and aunties and people who are older and wiser, the crones of our community. And I say that with so much love in case you're like, oh, I can't believe she used the word crone. I ask for help and people come and they give me their support. They lend me their magical tools, their magical sprays and oils and protections. And I integrate all of that into my personal practice. So I say if it's a high level thing that you need done, ask for help. Stronger together than alone. I did also want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about my personal perspective when it comes to banishings, and it differs a lot actually from my own mother. So my mom kind of feels like if there are demons, or I don't even know what the right word to use because I can't think of a direct head-to-head translation, but like lower vibrational entities, if that, whatever you want to use, but they basically types of hungry ghosts. If there are types of particular spirit entities that we as a human society tend to consider negative or malefic or unwanted, the go-to approach for a lot of mystics, including my mother, is to banish, 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 get them the hell out of your place. I do not agree with that. And this is a sore spot between my mom and I. She's like, there are these energies in your house. I'm like, I don't care. They live here. This is part of their home. They were here before I was. So that's the thing, right? Like it's not that they came after me. So I got the sense that there were some energies attached to this area that I live in, and they were here first. And so we just find a way to coexist. I don't banish. I never banish in those particular instances. And there are no blanket rules. I think it has to be taken on a case by case basis. You really want to be sensitive and open-minded and listen and hear what that particular entity wants. If the entity is feeling helpless and unable to, let's say, leave or move on or detach, but they want to, or it's part of their greater good to detach. And you have to be very objective and fair and thoughtful and sensitive about how you determine these rulings, right? But if it's that situation, then of course you jump in and help in any way that you can as a magician. But some spirits make this area a home, even though they're incorporeal, meaning they don't have a physical body of occupancy. This is their home now. They found a way to make peace with it. They've integrated and harmonized with the tree spirits, the land spirits, the rock spirits. They're part of this place. And you know that this is now their home in a way that they love. Even if certain aspects of their presence may be of minor convenience to you that may feel malefic, I would learn to change yourself and harmonize with that situation than to get rid of that situation. Just my thoughts. In my personal copy of the Metaphysician's Day Planner, the human body clock correspondences are so important to me that I actually have a flag of it just all on its own. I'm not sure of any sources I can cite to in the English language on the body clock and qi energy flow within the body, but I think any text on traditional Chinese medicine or qi gong is going to have something on the human body clock. The human body clock is a theoretical principle in traditional Chinese medicine that the qi in your body flows in a particular regulated cycle through the different systems and parts of your body, and it focuses on each part of the body during that cycle. And so at certain hours of the day, your qi flow focuses on particular systems or organs. Now, if you want to optimize your personal qi, then what you do is you collaborate with your body's clock and you make sure certain activities, physical activities or nourishing activities are done during certain hours to optimize the qi flow in that particular area of the body. For example, if you know you constantly have indigestion, stomach, and gut issues, then one little tiny thing you can do in terms of adjusting your lifestyle to see if you can optimize your body clock is know that your qi energy flow, the qi is around the area of your guts and digestive system during the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every single morning. So if you know you tend to have digestive issues, then you want to be really gentle and also nourishing toward your digestive system every single day between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. without fail. So for example, make sure you're not eating foods that you know are going to be tough on your digestive system during those hours. People who tend to have digestive and gut issues, for example, between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. should not be drinking coffee or tea or caffeinated beverages on an empty stomach. It's generally considered bad for everybody, but if you have a strong gut, it's like, it's all right. You'll live, right? You'll deal with it. But if you have a weak gut and a weak digestive system, then this might be something you want to adjust in terms of your lifestyle. Making sure you have a breakfast with probiotics or something that's going to help nourish and nurture your digestive system between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. every day is going to really help. It's attuning and working with rather than against your internal body clock. According to the body clock theory, your personal chi flows and concentrates in your kidneys during the hours of 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So it's considered optimal to eat a nourishing, filling dinner during those particular hours. If you know you have thyroid issues or metabolism issues, you're looking to improve your metabolism, then make sure you're not eating at all and your body is very restful and at peace and relaxed between the hours of 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. That's going to really help improve your metabolism. So what I would do is think about what your own physical and mental and also spiritual health goals are for the year. Then go to this page in your day planner and devise some daily or at least weekly practices you can integrate into the week at a glance section of your day planner to make sure you are optimizing your own physical and mental health. At first, I was hesitant to publish a book like The Tao of Craft under my name, but then I decided to do so specifically because I wanted to have a resource available to people who wanted to learn more about esoteric Taoism and Taoist magic, but from the English language. For those who might have financial access issues, I do offer a lot of free resources on Taoist magic as well. It may be a little bit of an exercise of looking for a needle in a haystack, but if you find some way and manage to go through the hot mess of blog posts and references on my website and free downloads there, and also my old videos on this channel, you should be able to come up with a pretty good playlist and collection of completely free resources, references, handouts, and downloads on esoteric Taoism. I find Taoism in particular is very difficult to talk about, and Buddhism as well, basically any religion, I think, because, and this is why it's esoteric, right? I think these are difficult topics. Why the occult is the occult, why esoterica is because anybody can say one thing, but what the recipient hears can be something totally different. And the level of understanding or wisdom received from what is given is entirely dependent on the recipient. Just thinking about Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, what is spoken about these religions, tenets, and principles often get distorted in self-destructive and socially destructive ways. So specifically in terms of Taoism, I don't think this is something that can be taught through words or can be spoken about. I can point to particular texts, and what you reap from those texts will help in your own journey in cultivating Taoist wisdom. And over the centuries and centuries of Taoism, there are these set practices that have been recommended. So implementing those practices and your own experiences and insights attained from implementing those practices is, in my opinion, the only way to truly learn Taoist tenets and Buddhist tenets as well. These are not principles that can be learned from hearing someone speak or reading a book. I think these are tenets that have to be learned through actual personal practice. Get a copy of the Tao Te Ching translated into English. This is one that I like. And the I Ching Book of Changes. Of course, personally, I'm biased. I like my own, but since it's not published, but you can get a copy of it through the I Ching Practitioners online course that I offer. Because it's not published, I'll also recommend Kirsten Huang. Upfront warning, Kirsten Huang is really difficult to read. This is not going to be light, easy reading. It may cause you to bang your head against the wall, but it's just really, really good. It's very well done. Professor Huang or Professor Huang is one of the best. If you're truly determined to learn Taoism, what I would do is make it a daily practice to, almost as a form of bibliomancy, turn to a random page in any of those books of your choosing, read the leaf, read that page or that section, if it's, that section, and then take the rest of the day to ponder and ruminate on what that passage means to you. Something I liked to do was, in fact, ask my friends and family what they thought that passage means. So if I'm doing that, I turn to a page and I read something. Let me go. Hold on. Lao Tzu. All right. Chapter 39. From of old, there are not lacking things that have attained oneness. It goes on. I will try to summarize so I don't read the entire page. It's going to take a while and I will bore too many of you. And so essentially it's saying the sky attained oneness first, then became clear. If it were not clear, then it would fall to pieces. So it's kind of a syllogism if you think about it in terms of tautology. So these are a series of syllogisms. If the earth, so the earth attained oneness and that's how it became calm. If the earth was not calm, it would fall to pieces. The spirits attained oneness and that's how they became charged with mystical powers. If the spirits were not charged with mystical powers, then they would cease from being. So then I would think about this passage and these syllogisms. And then not only would I just in my own vacuum of a space reflect on and ruminate what that means to me, I would actually present the question to my friends and family. I would walk by James and present that question to him and ask him, hey, what does that mean to you? And hear his explanation. We forget that the Tao speaks through all people. And so sometimes we get into this space where we think, well, I want to learn esoteric Taoism from some highfalutin master, somebody who is highly acclaimed and published, or a guru of some kind. And I think maybe the best way to truly learn esoteric Taoism is from somebody who doesn't even know they are teaching you esoteric Taoism. Your best friend, your buddy, my husband, James, just ask them the question, hear their lay person's response. That is the Tao. I'm not qualified to speak on the intersection of Freemasonry and magic. However, it is a topic that I'm really fascinated in. And so I have read a lot of academic journal articles on this subject. I think that's something that you might want to do if this is a topic of fascination to you. Go to any of those databases that have for free download published dissertations, theses, or peer-reviewed journal articles, and there's going to be a search function, and search the keywords for Freemasonry and occultism, and you're going to pull up, I know University of Chicago, there was this article I found in there. I can't remember the title, but I think the title is actually Freemasonry and Occultism or something like that, from the University of Chicago. And there's just so many incredible references and resources on this particular subject. And those authors and voices can speak with a lot more authority and intelligence than I could possibly even try to on this particular intersection. But of great interest to me. And I think that it's definitely a worthy exercise to go find those articles. For someone who has personally never, not once in her life, experienced sleep paralysis, weirdly, I know a lot about this topic because it was a topic my mother was obsessed with. I think in her younger years, she experienced sleep paralysis. I know one of my uncles who died when my mom was pretty young, and my grandfather who also died when my mom was in high school, both experienced sleep paralysis. It's something that my mom was just very obsessed with, and she talked a lot about it. She had a lot of doom and gloom warnings and just information information overload on this particular subject. So I will share a little bit of what I have been told. I have been told that sleep paralysis happens to those who might have weaker body constitutions, not always their own fault. So two, right? One, it can be their own fault in the sense of maybe weaker willpower, or they have done things to their body to weaken their body constitution, taking drugs, a lot of bad karma, stuff like that. And then the other aspect, of course, is nothing of their own doing. They're just born physiologically with weaker body constitutions, not their fault, just a thing. People have different body constitutions, physiologies as well. So for whatever case it may be, because of that weakness, when they're horizontal, it's easier for a demon to get on top of them and siphon their chi life force. Or if they can attempt to possess and occupy the body, either or. If they can't possess and occupy the body, that will be their first if they can try. But if they can't possess and occupy that physical body, because all incorporeal hungry ghosts, negative spirits, demons of that kind want to occupy a physical body because they can. I mean, we all want a physical body. You can do more, you can control more, you can achieve more when you have a physical, tangible body. If they can't do that, then what they're trying to do is siphon more life force from you, because when they siphon your life force, it's a way of feeding. When they feed off your life force, they get stronger and they attain stronger mystical powers on their own. So when you experience sleep paralysis, what I've been told from this particular way of thinking, right, is that they are some kind of a malefic entity or a hungry ghost or a demon trying to take from you. The way to ward and protect against that is to find a way to strengthen your physical body constitution. That can be getting into traditional Chinese medicine to make sure you're taking the right herbs or have the right diet, that you're strengthening your physiology. Mantra recitations, again, this is going back into religious beliefs, however. So mantra recitations, devotionals, invocations, and petitions to much more powerful divine entities, gods, goddesses, bodhisattvas, Buddhas, whatnot, will help to ward off these types of entities. What do I think about death? I'm always questioning whether or not my strong conviction in reincarnation as a thing is because I've essentially been brainwashed to believe it. Let me explain. I am from a culture where reincarnation is absolutely a thing. And because there's so many centuries of this belief integrated into my culture, so even before I was born, the collective unconscious knowledge that I inherited is that of a belief in reincarnation. And then I was born into a family that believes very strongly in reincarnation. It was assumed to be real in my family. And if you think about language, the way we use language, right? We always use words, even in casual, fun, amusing conversation. In my next lifetime, I will, or maybe in my past life, I. And this is not even meant to be a serious conversation. It's just part of the lingo, how we talk. Even conversationally, James, without actually believing reincarnation, he still uses that, these catchphrases in Chinese, like, oh, in my past life, I, or in my next life, I will. And he doesn't even believe in reincarnation. So that is how baked into our culture the belief in past lives and reincarnation is. I think for me, because I experience communications with those who have physically passed on, and I feel like there's still a sentience that is present around me from my ancestors and those who have died. They've never really left us. That's my personal experience. Combined with that personal belief and strong conviction in reincarnation as being a thing, I guess I find I'm not necessarily as fearful of death because I don't see it as a cessation. I see death as just a transition period. And so for me, the death card, for example, in tarot is always about transition because of that belief system that I have. Whereas I think maybe somebody who doesn't have that belief system will find a meaning of cessation in the death card, whereas I do not, again, going back to fundamental personal beliefs on what death even means. I do believe I have a soul or spirit, I don't know what it's called, something of some kind that is incorporeal, that occupies this particular physical body for a particular time. There's a science that governs the growth and decomposition of this physical body. And during this period of time, while my sentience is occupying this physical body, what I do is going to have a direct karmic impact on that sentience and will dictate where this sentience goes in terms of a corporeal body, the reincarnation, in its next lifetime, in its next incarnation. Karma. Evil. I do believe that there is a force in this world, this universe, in fact, that reflects what we, in a lay term, conceptualize evil as. That evil does exist in this world. However, a lot of the things that we describe or label as evil are not evil, in my opinion. So I think we mislabel things as evil way too often. And a lot of the things we call evil, even things we call demons, are not evil. There's a destructive force in this world that can often have a baneful negative impact on ourselves, our egos. And so we perceive that destructive force, that baneful impact, as evil. But I don't think it's evil. I think objectively it's just a destructive energy, and a very necessary destructive energy for there to be harmony. True evil, like the real bona fide evil, whatever that means, but you know what I mean. Evil, I think for most of us, we don't see it and we can't readily identify that as evil. That's why it's evil. It is intelligent. It is savvy. It is cunning. Well, I'm anthropomorphizing evil, obviously, but anthropomorphizing evil for the convenience of trying to understand it, I would say it is cunning in a sense in terms of a personality trait, because it's hard for us to detect evil. Usually we don't realize it's there until after it's left. Only when we are experiencing the aftermath of true evil do we realize, oh my gosh, that was evil. Personally, I have never experienced demons as evil, as that energy, that impression that I have of what true evil is. Maybe I think of demons as the worst victims of evil. So if anything, they demand my sympathy and compassion more than any other entity at all. Demons are victims of evil. Demons are not evil. I definitely self-identify as a witch. I just think in terms of using that word to label myself when I communicate with others is complex, because I don't know what it means. I guess I don't really know what the word witch means, and it means so many different things to so many different people. If people welcome me into the witch community, I'm so cool with that. I self-identify as a witch. I'm okay with using the term. Weirdly enough, or maybe not weirdly, I think the word occultist is a lot more precise. When people use the word occultist, the general understanding of what that word means, their impression of what that word implies, is a lot more accurate in terms of how I would identify. This is, of course, exempting the crazy people who have wackadoodle definitions of the occultist, like we eat babies and we are bloodsuckers, whatnot. So obviously it's exempting the crazy. I'm pretty sure it's evident from my work product that I put out there. And just if you observe me, that Zhou Tianxuan, the Lady of the Ninth Heaven, is very important in my work, my craft, my practice, and my entire life. If I had the time to return to East Asia, travel to different parts of Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia for sure, Hong Kong, and southern Taiwan, and parts of mainland China as well, to really dig deep into research, I would be very interested in writing an academic treatise on Zhou Tianxuan. But in terms of a more mystical how-to type of book on the magical practices around Zhou Tianxuan, that's a tougher question to answer. This one came in as a DM, a question that was asked quite a while ago, but I think it's a really interesting one that I want to address here. To summarize the question, are working with daemons and spirits from the Key of Solomon a form of calling upon demons, and is it dangerous? I would deep dive into the Babylonian concept of planetary spirits, how that was syncretized into the Greek conception of daemons, Manichaean and early Gnostic beliefs in daemons and planetary spirits, the Christianizing of Western Europe, and then how daemons became conflated with demons. I think cooking and baking is dangerous. I'm constantly burning myself, like literally injuring myself when I cook dinner. I think driving is dangerous. Think about the number of fatalities every year from driving. This is probably an awful, judgy thing for me to say, but if you look at a lot of the self-professed occultists out there, it becomes fairly evident that invocation of daemons and working with daemons and planetary spirits and spirit entities, such as what you would find in a book like the Key of Solomon, is dangerous. My first go-to is never invocation of spirits for help. My first go-to is personal empowerment. Can I do it myself with my own two hands? I also apply my lawyering skills and think about every single petition as a contract. And you really want to be mindful of how that contract is drafted. Signing any contract, any legally binding contract, is very dangerous if you don't understand the terms of that contract and if you haven't thoroughly negotiated the terms of that contract. If we're using specifically terms like angels and demons and presuming the lay commonly held definition for angels and demons, and this goes beyond Christianity. I mean, at this point, because of Western and Christian imperialism, everybody thinks this way. Am I right or am I right? Angels might not necessarily work in the same sense of that contract bargain for negotiation or exchange because they see you as a pawn for a greater purpose, but that's not in a negative expression. It's more that they have a greater objective at hand and you're one small piece in them getting to that greater objective. So if that means handing you something, throwing you something, helping you with something, so they help you with something, it gets them toward that greater collective, that greater objective, they'll do it. The engine or model of what that looks like is not going to be a contract bargained for exchange. A daemon or even a demon is a different entity in a sense. And so, well, they're not a different entity. They all come from the same source, but at this point in their evolutions and the divergences of their paths, they are a different entity in that sense, right? The engine or model they rely upon is going to be a little more aligned to how we view contracts and bargained for exchange. Since I read and review contracts for a living, I know all too well how we're constantly trying to hide the ball, do bait and switches, or nickel and dime and sneaky people through language in contracts. Are humans dark energies evil? If you are petitioning a daemon for assistance in something, then divination is like the negotiation process or being able to interpret and discern the terms of a proposed contract, which is why I think divination is so important when you're talking about petitioning. I might liken doing a petitioning without divination as blindly signing a contract without reading the terms. I mean, I guess ultimately I will say this. Fear is a healthy feeling to feel, and you should listen to your fear as long as you use wisdom to understand your fear. And also that we don't let our fear cause us to behave in ways that are going to be destructive, harmful, or oppressive toward other people. Fearing daemon work can be very healthy. It can be an indication that it's not for you. And if it's not for you, I really wouldn't push the issue. I would just not go for something like that. I can't think of the correct way of phrasing it in English right now. In Chinese, we would say 不要勉强. If someone who does know Mandarin hears that, can you please translate what that means in English? How do you say 不要勉强 in English? I don't know. I guess maybe just don't push it. Don't push the issue. I don't know. I don't think that's correct. I just make sure that my fear of something or my feelings of fear will help me navigate what I choose to do or not do for myself. But that fear, that feeling of fear does not ever cause me to go out into this world and attempt to oppress others or attempt to bar other people from doing what they want to do or for exercising their will, because maybe their fear is not the same as my fear. One size never fits all. I believe I've answered the two questions on screen through my responses to other questions, but to recap, my conception of spirit guides of any denomination is that they are incorporeal, meaning they don't have a physical, fixed, solid form. However, they are able to occupy any aspect of the physical manifested world. So I experience my guides through synchronicities. My sense of it is that they find a way to occupy parts of the physical world as I navigate this world along my path and try to leave signs and omens and communications by occupying different aspects or orchestrating different parts of this world, almost like puppet strings, to make sure I get their message. If you are psychic or open to that psychic connection, then you can also receive downloads through your four clairs, your psychic senses, rather than your five physical senses, to commune with them, to experience those guides if you have that psychic open connection. That was so much fun for me. Thank you so much for asking me the questions because I know it means you care. I know that was very long, so I am going to go through the exercise of getting timestamps for each question. If you have any follow-up questions, additional questions, or I did not understand the assignment and I need to clarify, you can ask again in the comments section.